you open up a Refinitiv workspace, you will see an overview like this. I know that some of you already work with Refinitiv in Max Schreiter's class. However, I will give for the tools that we may need an introduction. What you see is, first of all, a sample layout of the market, which you could definitely change to your customers what you like. So you have here the current S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial, and so on and so forth. Different benchmarks of bonds. You have the most important exchange rate courses, always related to the US, and so forth. And I will directly switch to the app library and go to portfolio management. Open up the so-called asset allocation tool. Directly has included an example. An example where it takes finally from June 2008 to April 2018 historical returns of certain indexes. You could simply add some indexes if you would like to. Simply click on here, imports several other proxies. But for us, it works if we simply take this. So, when I press optimization output, it takes some time. However, you will observe at the end a graphical perspective of an efficient frontier. An efficient frontier with constraints and an unconstrained. Let us pick, because this is what we're doing usually here, the unconstrained one. So the unconstrained one, you see that on the minimum variance, so on the farthest left-hand side, you see an asset allocation of some small cap US equity, some large cap US equity, and a huge amount of US treasuries, right? Of approximating roughly 80.7%. So if I'm moving now, you will see that the weights start to change. They start to change. Let me move a little bit backwards. So this minimum variance portfolio, what we had is the corner portfolio, right? I've shown this directly to you. It's one of the corner portfolios. Now let's seek and try to find the next corner portfolio. Take some time. Here's one. What has happened? We have drastically increased our large cap US equity here on the right hand side, right? The small caps are almost zero, so I have not yet met it completely, but it changed to zero. So it is one of our definitions of the corner portfolio. Non-US developed equity has increased as well. So the more and more I move, see that small cap US equity stays at zero. Non-US developed equity increases. And here is our portfolio as well, where US corporate bonds are starting to increase. And on this whole line, you will see different corner portfolios if you do by yourself. Therefore, the weights will drastically change.
Why is the maximum only emerging market equity? Because they had the highest return last year. Or why is that?
What?
If you push that to the maximum, basically, to the end of the possibilities, then the whole portfolio is made out of emerging market equity. Is that because they had the highest returns in the last years or something, and that's just the assumption?
So in our universe, so what we have here as assets, this is the asset class with the highest standard deviation, the highest return. Yeah? The yellowish one here is actually this is the corner portfolio as well as C. Yeah? We have 100%, almost 100% invested in non-US developed equity. Everything else jumped to zero. Meaning those corner portfolios that I've explained to you before, theoretically, exist in reality if you do optimization. A portfolio somewhere here. What we see in here is this portfolio. We see some non-US developed equity. We see some large caps, some US treasuries, and some US corporate bonds. This is not the exact example here, but this is, let's say, one of those examples that you happen to step into a commercial bank. This is what they would sell you as how you should construct a portfolio. Why? Because someone told them that you are at probably 6 to 8% return and a small standard deviation. This is where this narrative comes from. So if you go to a simple commercial bank, one of those consultants there. So somehow what they've learned that this could be something on the efficient frontier. However, as you see here, it really depends on your own risk appetite. What you would like to invest into. Questions regarding this? Yes.
So a corner portfolio can be described as a portfolio where that changes in sloped curves.
Right. Slope finally of changes from negative or to positive, and that there is one asset that has and there's one asset that has jumps to zero. Obviously, that's the case.
There must be one asset that turns to zero.
Yeah, this is usually the case, yeah. Because otherwise you would not get the different weights. Okay, some playing around here. Obviously, you can export this to Excel. I will not do it because sometimes it takes quite some time. And then you would get the whole thing, the efficient frontier, the portfolios on it, directly in Excel selected. Specifically, your selection. As you see, you can put in instruments that are proxies for whole markets, yeah, as Standard & Poor's, as Dow Jones Industrial, and so on and so forth. So if you would purely construct a portfolio by yourself out of ETFs, that are market-wise ETFs, then you could take this into view. But there are many, many proxies included in Refinitiv workspace, for instance, for the tech giants in the US and so on and so forth, that you could build up here an optimized portfolio for yourself. Okay, let me go back for the working time on your case. Okay. Obviously, for those that have not worked yet with Refinitiv, I can search for corporations as Mercedes-Benz and simply look at this. I will get usually tier sheet. Tier sheet, what the corporation is doing, how is it performing, about beta factors that are already pre-calculated, information of the fundamentals. I will get recommendations. And turn-wise, I would like to go with you directly to estimates. Here you have included under estimates, really the estimates of all analysts covering Mercedes-Benz. To get the information of, let's say, for May 22, it says, okay, how many say strong buy, how many say buy, directly allocated here, and mean price, a recommendation mean, and a target price. The current target price is 89, and the price current is 62, meaning that there is some room. This is the average of all analysts covering finally Mercedes-Benz cars, based upon obviously the fundamental analysis that they're doing. Let's look at the analyst coverage down here. You see here 9 say strong buy on the left hand side above, 17 say buy, say hold. You even see who has said what regarding Mercedes-Benz. Meaning, from the Banco Santander, the Eduardo Gonzalez has said it will be outperforming. He said this on the review date on the 27th of April. That's the price target is 104, so way above. And one big remark. Get for most of the analysts here the dial through and their email. Please. Please. Don't use it and write those analysts all the time. Yeah? Maybe you can do this if you have, let's say, write masks or something. So what you also see here is an analyst recommendation rating. So this is a rating on how did the analyst perform for his forecasts. For his forecast, why do I say this or bring this here? Because I think you should know in capital market theory about this as well. For Mercedes-Benz, he was quite good actually. In the past, overall his rating is, let's say, mediocre. Let me look at Michael from the DZ Bank is actually not as good. So you can really play around with this. There are obviously always some undisclosed analysts that file not for disclosure. What I think is as well not so good, okay? One is. But let's move forward. Let's move forward to ESG. ESG and cooperation-wise. So if you press on ESG for the statement, it will give you finally an overview on the most relevant information regarding ESG. So it shows you a combined score, of all the ESG scores that Thomson Reuters Refinitiv is tracking. Yeah? Let me make an example. So the combined score is by -B. Environmental pillar score, which has a huge weight of 34%, is A+. Social pillar score is A, and governance pillar score is A+ as well. You can look then downwards which policies are in place for this specific corporation. For instance, they have a resource reduction policy in place. You could even go to the far left-hand side, right-hand side for older years and look how did they changed it. You can even look at how much water this corporation is using and how has it changed over time. Total water withdrawal in cubic meters. So if you look at this, it's quite a huge amount of water they need for their production. Could look at the CO2 equivalent emissions total. You can get this almost for all blue chip corporations that are providing the data. Obviously, they don't have any NOx or SOx emission reduction policy in place because they're still producing diesel cars. So you get here a very deep insight into the different ESG things of Daimler. Let me go to a different monitor. I will go to industries. Let me explain why am I doing this. In the industry overview, you can select a specific industry. Yeah? For instance, let us take United States and let's pick industrials. Where is flip to energy? In industrials or in the industry selector, I flip to energy and will directly go on the right hand side down to ESG. I will explain later on why I do these steps. It usually takes some time, specifically when you're online in the Zoom call. What you see down here is finally all the companies operating within this industry, the energy industry. You see their overall ESG score calculated based upon the different scores provided by Refinitiv. So, for instance, if you like to build a portfolio which includes somehow the energy sector, you probably pick a corporation or corporations that have a very good ESG score. And you would, let's say, go into the deep dive and look at the corporations as what I did with Daimler and really look at what are they doing, which policies do they have in place, and so on and so forth. And then say I go to the energy sector because my SDG goal I'm aiming at is energy reduction. Yeah? But watch out, the ESG score is always an average, and you should look at the different scopes. I mean, for if you want to do for environmental or go for environmental, obviously the governance pillar score is maybe interesting for you, and the average and the social pillar score as well, but the environmental pillar score should be more important for you, right? And there's a so-called ESG controversies score. This is actually one of the best things that Refinitiv provides. Score measures a company's exposure to environmental, social, and governance controversies and negative events reflected in global media. Meaning, if we look at Halliburton here, they have very low controversy score, meaning covered in the media. There must be something regarding ESG criteria that is negative for Halliburton. And so this gives you already an idea for a corporation, maybe to at least Google it. What was the problem? And is this problem maybe tilting your idea to include this corporation into a certain portfolio that you want to build that tackles a certain SDG problem? So let me go to the Eurozone. Germany. Let me pick a different sector. Let me take, for instance, the utility sector, where our big energy giants as Eikon and so on are located. You see here that their score fares are not good. Their overall ESG score, it's at 69. If we do a deep dive in it, Eikon actually has no controversies. However, the environmental pillar score is quite low. The social pillar score is not at best. And the governance pillar score is okay-ish. It's okay. Yeah, it's actually an A. Yeah? So they probably have an equal board distribution, inclusive environment, and so on and so forth. However, now the question arises if you want to have Eikon in your portfolio and want to do impact investing portfolio. This was yesterday my question to James Gifford. Would have to have a strategy and say, I want to invest 5% or even more into Eikon because I want to change that. So creating impact, so having a direct strategy. To change your strategy regarding environmental. Meaning if you do this and include in your portfolio such a corporation, I want you that you at least say why you are doing this. So I put this Eikon in my portfolio because it's not so good in environmental and I want to change this as a huge block. Here? Okay. Let me shift to Eikon. If you directly press on name, the next window opens up and you see what they have as problem. For instance, they have no sustainable packaging policy in place. Water efficiency is not targeted. energy efficiency is not targeted. So you see already why they have such a bad rating. Yeah? So you see their policies that is drawn out of the strategy, out of the annual statement, out of what the investor calls are saying. If you go to ownership, directly see an overview on which are the big investors. Obviously, since the deal between Eikon, RWE, and Energy, we see a huge stake of 15% of RWE at Eikon. The second is directly BlackRock. Third one, CP Investment, WS, DBS, so very clear, and Vanguard, Norge Bank Investment Management. What is this? Norge Bank Investment Management. Yes? Yes, it is this huge fund that invests, let's say, the money they earn from gas and so on. Yeah? So, and what you will find usually is BlackRock, this Norge Bank Investment Management Fund, Vanguard Group, Templeton, these are the standard big players. Yeah? And then obviously you have for BlackRock usually two positions because they aim not at too much higher than 5%. Yeah? So they split it up to different limiters. So what you can do if while you're analyzing, you can look at, for instance, if you really want to create impact on Eikon, and you would add here another 8 to 9% from your impact investing fund, this could say, okay, BlackRock, ABS, Vanguard, and Norge Bank, they all have signed to the goals, to the SDG goals, to reach them. I mean, BlackRock boss simply said something about, was quite interesting interview on why we should aim at those and should use our money to create impact. Meaning that you together with those guys would be having a higher shareholder or share in the total securities as RWE and could create impact. Double check. Yeah? Okay. Questions? Yes.
This is information publicly available. So people how many shares for the biggest or top.
Most of the data is available if it's according to BaFin to be published. Yeah? Then you can see it at the Deutsche Börse, for instance, website, etc., and so on and so far, on Google and Finance. This is publicly. And the rest, you see it in those databases.
What does activist mean on CDP?
Yeah?
Over the date of number 3.
This is what actually yesterday James told us.
So they are
Very active.
kind of doing like impact investing or whatever.
It could be or could be simply persons that try to change the strategy of the operation. Yeah? Yes?
So after the case, we won't have access to it anymore. Is there anything that we could privately use?
The problem is with all those databases, they're quite expensive. Yeah? We have a limited amount of, let's say, licenses. Yeah? I would like to assign all licenses to you and have for every student one license, but this is actually, it would increase your student fees drastically. So that's why we have only for limited time always assigned licenses. If you write a master's thesis, if you go to finance courses where this is used, yeah, then you usually get access. Yeah?
No, it's after studies.
After studies,
Started a company that uses them.
I started a company that uses one of those databases already. That's the easiest way. Yeah? Otherwise, you can obviously file for a private license. Private license at Bloomberg, but this is expensive as well. I think the last time I've checked, it's a full-fledged account at Bloomberg is for a private person with non-investment, so meaning that you're not an institutional investor. Yeah, it's roughly 2,000 euros per month. So, but they have low cost entry and low barrier subscriptions for Bloomberg as well. I think the last one where you get some more information, but not real time, not warrants, not option information, and all the rest, and ESG information. We simply get those tier sheets of the corporations. I think it's at Bloomberg 250. It's very simple subscription, but 250 per month as well. Yeah. So you see, it's quite expensive. Yeah? Okay. I will open up Excel. If you dial in your Windows PC directly, Excel, it should be Refinitiv Excel popping up quite quickly. Then it directly installs and opens up the Refinitiv items, which you find located here above. I have something to say regarding the usage at Athens. Huh? There are some possibilities we did in the past, Eikon will show, but it's almost impossible. So signing in, and then it opens up. You have there the full-fledged access to Refinitiv. Full-fledged access so that you can in real time download data. I will use here for our fortune and your fortune for the case study one specific element, which is called the data stream formula. Data stream formula builder up here looks like this. Finally, it has two lines. The first line is a series or a list. So you're looking for instance, Apple, you would put it in here. You're looking for Mercedes-Benz, you would put in here. So split equities, an index or whatsoever, you would look for it in here. I will show in a second how. The second is the data type, meaning you can download at once different kinds of data for one specific corporation. I will show you how I would structure my sheets. And then later on do with references in Excel. So X and S reference. One aggregate sheet. So I press here on this Find Series button on the right hand side, and the navigator opens, and I could look for any stock. Which stock would you like to? Huh? What? Okay, and I simply make here, I check it. What else?
Events.
This is a good example, thank you. See here at the very top, Siemens with a symbol EN, double point symbol. This means the Indian replicate on the national India market, meaning look for a D Siemens, so this is the German one. What else? Nestle. Yes, the Switzerland, we are here, okay. What else? Pfizer. What? So again, we took the United States here, perfectly fine. And then I press use. I think there's now enough. Now I look for one data type, and one data type is simply I would like to have the prices. I plug in here display headings and transpose data. And now I'm inserting. Hopefully it works. Yes. We have finally downwards the different stocks. And right, you have the prices and the dates for those stocks. Immediately download it. So for those price and other things. So I will copy this file name as you can see and open up another tab because I actually want to have the same assets. And I press on manage requests and I'm in the same cell where the formula is included. I would like to edit the request. See, I plugged in P for price. And now I would like to have for those, for instance, a different data type. As on the search item for the data types, I could go to ESG directly and look at all the time series items. Important because I'm doing this for different days. For instance, whether it's an adult entertainment producer or not, and so on and so far, alcohol retailer, and so on and so far. So it would be a yes or no. But I could also download the CO2 equivalent emissions direct. If I would like to have information what this is actually all about, I simply press a small arrow over here. And then notice direct CO2 equivalent emissions scope 1 to 3 compounded annual growth rate. So compounded by the annual growth rate, where is I would like to have total here over the last 5 years and so on so far. I could look if it's producing chemical or biological weapons for all those. But this is one deep dive you can take. But I would like to go to the standard data types. Clear all. Let's take Garrett, for instance. Take a check. Use it. For the EBIT, it doesn't make any sense to gain daily data. That's why I made this as an example. Because the EBIT is reported for big corporations 4 times a year, maybe. Yeah? Sometimes an investor call an update, but not really reported and signed by an auditor. Meaning, what makes sense is obviously yearly, for instance. Huh? Then I press insert, and then it's retrieved. Why there's not available? On the farthest right, this would be for 2022, right? I said -2 years, so for the last 2 years. 2022 has none of those corporations yet reported their annual statement because 2022 is still ongoing, right? So, but we have it for the last 2 years. I could even, let me go on the time series, I could build in 2009 to 2021. I see something wrongly formatted here, but fine. So what you see is here, now it has downloaded the EBIT of those corporations for the last 12 years. Okay, so this is how you would use to download direct data into an Excel sheet. And what you have seen here, what I've done is I've made up one tab for price. If I need some additional information, I have one tab for another. And how do I link it? I link it simply by putting usually in the first row the ISIN, so the International Security Identification Number, in the first column. Yeah. Let us do this as well. ISINs are static information. So far, we have just seen me do time series. Let me open up another tab. Obviously, if I take a static item, I will get only one value. So I take simply the last year. And then I data types expressions. So latest value, ISIN, insert. And the ISIN. Usually what I build is for the static information. Build one sheet where I have ISIN. Then I take name of the corporation. I take, for instance, what else could I take as static information? All those basic family things about currency. Yes, for instance, I could put search for SIC code. Who knows what a SIC code is? SIC. Right. It is the standard industry classification, original found by only the Ministry of Work, blah, and blah in the US. Because they want to have it for their statistics, whereas the workforce working and so on. You have here different levels of SIC codes, and because they have, if you have, for instance, more as one if you're a diversified corporation, you have more as one business line. So you can look for the standard industry classification for the major 9 business lines. I simply put here the SIC code number 1 because it's usually the one that holds for the whole corporation. Then you see here already the SIC code 3 is for the main industry, Then 7 is the first sub-industry, and so on so far. You can simply Google it online and then look for it. Yeah? So, questions so far? Can you start working with Workspace at Refinitiv in the next exercise? After the break directly?
From the knowledge perspective or from the perspective of the hardware use?
From the now perspective or from the what perspective?
From the hardware perspective. Like,
the hardware perspective, yeah, the now perspective, the hardware perspective is obviously a problem. But then organize the groups yourself so that you can, since we had for every group one license, and we looked at that there are enough notebooks, but I think there are enough notebooks in the room. I think it will work that we somehow start using it, okay?
Can one license or one group license be only used once at the moment, or is
Yes.
channels?
Yes. Because otherwise we would have an infinite number of licenses, and Thomson, actually Refinitiv is obviously selling per license.
Very protected.
Yeah, per license.